Got it.
Perfect. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's get started. It's 5 minutes later. Yeah. Welcome everybody. My name is Karlin, and today's topic is basics of cybersecurity and why it is important to test. Before we begin, I just wanted to quickly talk about our corporate sponsor. So me and Sven, we work for Slalom Build, and Slalom Build is our corporate sponsor. They specialize in delivering custom built technology solutions as well as services, and both of us are coming from quality engineering background from that company. And then we are always looking for people. If you're interested, please go to slalombuild.com careers and look for any openings. Moving on, it's a tale of these three cities, a little history about Testaholics itself. I'm not sure if Dan has joined us today, but a little history here is, Dan had this group earlier. I think it was 2018 and 2019. We were about 400, and then we slowly rolled up into 506. I think it's now almost 700 members in our group. During 2019 March, I think myself and Sven, we actually did a postman workshop in person in Chicago downtown. We joined along with Dan to actually lead this meetup group. And since then, we have been doing all online meetup groups. And last year we did a couple of workshops as well. And this year we want to increase the frequency and a varied number of topics too. Moving on, I'll start off with agenda, and I also want to take a break here just to go around the room and introduce all of us as well. So today's agenda is cybersecurity. We'll just talk a little bit about cybersecurity and some real world threats, types of cyber attacks, and security testing strategies. And a little history about why I was interested in this. I have 15 years of experience in quality engineering, and I worked majorly in different consulting agencies with a ton of different clients. And what I've seen is we have done every kind of testing. It could be system integration, UI, API, performance, but there is always some issue that actually happens on a production day. And those are mostly related to some security issues or some networking issues or something which is kind of beyond what we have planned for. And that's where I kind of started getting interested into, what are these loopholes? Why are these threats? Why is it necessary to fix them on a production day? And my interest in this just started very recently into cybersecurity as a field. And then I started studying Azure cybersecurity certification, and I've cleared it very recently, the AC900. And then I'm also leading a secure build effort in our company. Our company has 10,000 members, and we are a small group of secure infosec people, trying to understand what is the best way to implement security at every level. We are a consulting group, and we are kind of thinking broader on, hey, how we can build secure accelerators. Can you have boilerplate code for testing? Can you have boilerplate code for something that is something you're working on cloud? So we're thinking in that ways, and that's what interested me as well. And what we are trying to do is kind of shifting left on security and trying to think about security at the story level, in every project that we implement. So today's our discussion is going to be very basic. We had Andrew. He was attending our meetup groups quite often, He had security background. He said that he's going to join today and then talk a little bit about his experiences as well. We have Sven, and he also has like 15 plus years of experience. I'll let him introduce himself as well. And then he's also going to talk a little bit about his experiences on security issues and how what were they impact, what was the impact of them, and how those were mitigated. And I see Dan also joined. Hey Dan, so I'll give it over to Sven, and then we'll go around the group. We'll introduce ourselves, and then we'll get started with the presentation.
Hi everyone, my name is Sven Thirion. I'm a principal like Karlin at Slalom Build. I come from a industry background. If you're talking about IT, I have a previous profession that we can talk some other time about, but my IT background is basically in industry, and I was a little bit exposed there to Veracode, like static testing, where you basically package up your application, you send it to a company, and they kind of run some tests and you get a report back, and then you have to fix all of those issues. So that was my first exposure. Then the cloud came along, and one of my reports was actually working on some testing, API testing, and she submitted her API keys into the repo. And we got notified the next day by Amazon that we have incurred $300,000 in cost in one day, because they found the key and basically was spinning up servers and doing Bitcoin mining. So that was kind of my wake-up call at that point around security testing. I'm not an expert as Karlin is, but I'm interested in learning more about it. So that's why I'm joining today.
Dan, do you want to quickly introduce yourself as well?
I'm David, and I'm just a senior QA person who does too many things and has too many hobbies and too many interests. So I'm currently granular, and security is still fun for me. And that's about it.
Yeah, sorry, I called you Dan.
I don't care. I mean, I can flip a coin and it's like, they'll either call me David or Dan. So I'm fine.
Sorry about that. Yeah, we'll go around the room. Terry, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Terry Stacer. I work for a company called Shift Left, because we take the name. I figure people would come to our website by mistake. I was Googling Shift Left and I'm here on the website. We have a SaaS solution, static analysis for security, and I'm here to learn.
Thank you. Alan?
Sorry. Mostly I'm retired. Kind of curious. I've always been kind of hooked on computers since high school. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for that. So if I learn something cool, and otherwise I'll kind of just enjoy what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Manny?
Yes, my name is Manny, and I'm actually here looking for a group that I'll be able to listen and ask information about what they're doing to on their side of cybersecurity, what the latest trends and how they protect their companies from cyber threats and cybersecurity, what they're doing on their end, stuff like that.
Thank you. Michael?
Hi, my name is Michael. I currently work for Boeing as a software engineer within the cybersecurity space. I wear a lot of hats at work myself. We kind of do a little bit of everything: network, cloud. What would you call it? Physical security, all of it. So I get to wear a lot of hats. Why I'm here, I'm also looking for a group of other like-minded individuals to talk about cybersecurity. Really interested in web application security though, but I know nothing about it.
Nice to have you here. Lyle?
Yeah, Lyle Smart. I'm the QA manager at Lacale Group, online education. I don't know very much about security testing, so I'm just eager to learn more and yeah, have a group that I can bounce ideas off. So thank you very much for having me today.
Thank you. We'll go to Peak.
I am Peak. I work for the DePaul University, and I think my answer is the same as Lai. I don't know much about it and don't get to use it much when I test stuff in my work. So I want to know more. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We're happy to have you here. I think we have Wen Hu. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correct.
Wen Hao.
Wen Hao.
Hi,
Hi.
this is Wen Hao. My background is mostly in manual ETL testing, done some automation. I'm here just like to hear more about, or hear and learn more about cybersecurity testing. I mean, testing in general is always an interest to me. So just want to learn more about the topic. So
Okay.
thanks for hosting this.
Yeah, thank you. I think I've one more here. Emosi.
Hey, how are you doing? My name is Amosi Usala. I'm here to learn more about cybersecurity, and I just started my my school process in order to get my associate of cybersecurity.
Oh, wonderful. That's nice. Yeah, this is a completely different group, you know. A lot of people already know a lot about cybersecurity is what I feel, but yeah, definitely. So let's get started. You know, the presentation I've prepared is going to like start with very basics. You know, I hope you're able to see the screen. So, so I personally did a little history, you know, just a little digging about what cybersecurity is and how it started. So I think first 10 minutes, I'm just going to like talk about how it has evolved and why it is important for us to like understand cybersecurity and testing in general. So these are some like very interesting like milestones that happened in life or history, I would say, not our life. So 1940, it's the time before crime. So there is a guy named John von Neumann. You know, he speculated that computer programs could reproduce. You know, that's it. So this was the term, the first time, and the idea of you know, computers posing threats. So that was what was recorded. 1950s, you know, it was all you have this manual telecom phones that were invented. And one cyber security threat at that time, or, you know, like a threat was like people hijacked the protocols that allowed telecom engineers to work on network remotely to make free calls. You know, it was network hacking, and it was 1950. In 1960s, you know, the first big IBM computers were built. And you know, what was recorded was like, you know, back at that time, they used to allow students to come into the IBM quarters to learn about the system language and, you know, understand the system. But then the students started exploring and exploiting the other parts of the systems, you know, and then started understanding how they could just dig into what happens in that system. So that was a recorded event where people started exploiting computers in general. 1970, cybersecurity as a term was born, and everybody knows ARPANET, which is actually a precursor to intranet. And the full form of ARPANET here is the Advanced Research Projects Agency Network. In the next slide, I'll quickly talk about, you know, why I'm calling ARPANET. You know, there is something called Creeper and Reaper. When I was kind of like researching on, you know, about history, I came upon this example. You know, here it says that, you see this diagram, you know, the researcher named Bob Thomas created a program called Creeper that could move around the ARPANET network. Basically, ARPANET is a set of like, you know, networking computers, and it's leaving behind a trail wherever it went. You know, and the trail actually read, "I am a creeper, catch me if you can." And there's a guy called Ray, I'm not spelling his last name properly, Tomlinson, the inventor of email, he actually wrote a program called Reaper, which chased and deleted the creeper. So that's the reason you have the title called Creeper and Reaper. This was the very first example of antivirus software, which was self-replicating program, and also was the first ever computer worm. And from 1980s, all of us know, the precursor to internet is ARPANET, and then internet was born. As I was reading, I kind of like found this, there's this movie called War Games, which was released in 1983. And in that movie, a computer program takes over nuclear missile system, under the guise of a game. And this was the same year that Trojan horse and computer viruses were used. There have been a lot of movies and henceforth after that about exploiting from computer programs. And then came the Cold War, the US Department of Defense published a book called Orange Book, which had these instructions saying, hey, accessing the degree of trust that can be placed in a software that processes classified or sensitive information, and what security measures manufacturers are needed to build into their commercial products. This was the first call out of something in the government that needed to happen. Moving on, 1980s. This was again interesting. Is the guy called Marcus Hess. He piggybacked on ARPANET, and used Internet Gateway to hack 400 military computers, including mainframes at Pentagon, and he's kind of intending to sell the KGB. So this was all the Cold War era that was happening, and owning the information was utmost, treasure. And then at starting of this point, security was taken more seriously. 1990s is when the world all went online. And then we have the first polymorphic virus was created. Basically, it's a code that mutates while keeping the original algorithm intact. And then there's an interesting call out saying that we used to get the PC Today magazines. I read a lot of them as well, which has this free disk too. And that disk had a virus called Disk Killer, and it infected multiple computers. And then there's a call out saying that at that point in time, the European Institute of Computer Antivirus Research was established as well. There's a small statistics here. By mid-90s, the cybersecurity was mass produced. And then in the 1990s, it was tens of thousands. And then till 2007, it became 5 million. And because it was wildly mass produced, they had to create something that could stop this. And one NASA research developer first created this firewall program. Basically it's modeling the physical structure that prevents to spread the fire. And then this is pretty interesting. They just actually titled email, which is a blessing and a curse. I guess even till date, everybody use emails to spread viruses. So there's a call out here is in 1999, a Melissa virus was unleashed. It entered users' computer via Word document and then emailed copies to itself, the first 50 email addresses in Microsoft Outlook. It remains one of the fastest spreading viruses, and the damage cost around 80 million just to fix that. Moving on, 2000s, there's different kinds of threats, and with internet available more and more at home, there was a lot of cyber criminals that are sprouting, and the software was becoming more vulnerable, and people were actually exploiting that. So in 2001, a new infection technique appeared. This is very, very interesting, actually. I didn't know about this. Users no longer needed to download a file. We always used to think, hey, you have to like click something, click I want to download, only then virus gets downloaded into the machine. It was not there. You just have to like open an infected website and that's about it. Like your computer is completely exposed. And then and you have instant message services also began to get attacked. We have worms designed to propagate via the IRC channels also arrived. Around this time, we have a lot of programs that were getting created, but a lot of open source projects were also antivirus projects that were also getting created. And some of them that I called out are here to the left side. We have got Open Antivirus Project that was made available in 2000, and 2001 Wiscom AV was launched, and 2001 also OWASP launched free antivirus software that fully featured security solutions to the masses. And there was a long list. I only captured a few of them, but around this time as well, a lot of these solutions started moving into the cloud. And one of the main reasons they were saying is like, the challenges for these antivirus software is like they were making your computer very slow. And the solution for this was kind of like move it to the cloud and use it from there. And these were some of them that I listed to the right side here that had started having cloud security. So one of them here is Panda Security, combined cloud technology with threat intelligence in their antivirus product. McAfee Labs, followed, adding cloud-based anti-malware functioning to virus scan. And then we also have Anti-Malware Testing Standards Organization, AMTSO, was created and started working shortly after on a method of testing cloud products as well. Moving on, it's 2010s. It's a next generation attacks. I just have written like very few attacks here, but I'll in a minute I'll actually show you some websites that have a list of a lot of attacks. But then some of them I call out here is like credit cards were exposed. They're like item here that you have 400,000 credit card onlines were exposed. And in 2013, a former CIA employee for the US government copied and leaked classified information from NSA. There's another call out here is like in 2013 and 2014, malicious hackers broke into Yahoo and compromised accounts of personal information of its 3 billion users. That was back in 2013, almost 10 years ago. And Yahoo was subsequently fined $35 million for failing to disclose the news. I think I remember this episode. In 2017, WannaCry ransom infected a ton of computers in one day. In 2019, you have lots of like DDoS attacks. I just wanted to like call out some of the attacks that were like happening back at that time as well. But in a minute, I'll show you like it probably has tenfolded now. Yeah, let me just show you this link quickly. Oops, I need to stop the presentation. So this, are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So this is a pretty interesting website, which is, live cyber threat map. While I was kind of researching about the history and just trying to like Google things on, hey, I need to know the list of threats that are happening in the world right now, I came across this. And seeing the number of attacks just in a day really like surprised me. If you see here, you have like only 3 different kinds of attacks, but there are a lot more, different types of threats and attacks apart from these 3. Yeah, this is like happening right now. So this is pretty interesting. Like it's originating somewhere and attacking, somewhere else. Yeah, moving on. So 2010, I think a lot of cybersecurity was changed to make sure that we have a lot of programs that we secure our passwords, we secure our networks. We kind of make sure that we have all that rolled into our programming. And some of them that I called out here are multi-factor authentication. That's the first thing. The next you have network behavioral analysis, identifying malicious files based on behavioral deviations or patterns. And then you have threat intelligence and update automation. Threat intelligence, there are a lot of softwares that are out there currently for threat intelligence. Especially when I'm learning Azure, I kind of found out that Azure itself has quite a few that they're providing. And then you have real-time protection, also offering a non-access scanning, background guards, resident shields, and auto protect. Another way of protecting your software is sandboxing, where you create an isolated test environment where you can execute a suspicious file or a URL. And then you have forensics, replaying the attack to help security teams better mitigate future breaches. And then you have backup and monitoring. And the next thing you have is like web application firewalls, protecting against cross-site forgery, cross-site scripting, inclusion, and SQL injections. So that was the history. So I thought I'll just spend like a couple of minutes just to talk about, hey, how cybersecurity has evolved, just understanding in no man's words and trying to understand why is it kind of important. I want to quickly show you these two websites. Initially, I thought I'll have a couple of lists on the presentation, but then there was so much. So I thought let me go ahead, provide the link itself here, and then, we can kind of, if there is any questions, we can take it up later. But then this is one website where I've seen this is pretty updated on different kinds of attacks that are happening, and this list only, at least this page list from Jan 2022 to back Feb 2021. There's lots of attacks happening, and I've seen a lot of attacks as mostly ransomware attacks. I'll kind of talk to you about what those attacks are in a minute. Basically, asking for money. That's a ransomware attack. But there's lots of lists of attacks in here. Yeah, this is another interesting website that I've come across on statistics, cybersecurity statistics. And yeah, I want to quickly go through ransomware statistics here. If you could see the screen, this really interested me because, the second line itself speaks a lot. It's like ransomware attacks are estimated to cost 6 trillion annually by 2021. And yeah, I'll kind of move on. I don't want to read every sentence in this, but yeah, stop me if you have any questions. Yeah, we'll move on. Yeah, we don't have Andrew here, but then if anybody else wants to talk about Log4j attacks, this has happened a month ago, or rather 2 months ago, it was December 2021, and what happened there and how we all have worked on workarounds. I'm more than happy to listen. Anybody else want to talk about if your company has had this issue in December and how we've solved it?
So I just remembered from when it first happened, and I work on a government project at the moment. So this new version came out that everybody stop what you're doing. We need to push out this new version. We need to test it. So we tested it. And then it was like, hold on, there's a new version out again, because the version that was just pushed out actually has an issue with it. And that kept going for a couple of days. So we were constantly upgrading, testing, upgrading, testing.
Yeah.
It's really painful.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you, Sven. Another thing that I kind of learned is like, you can actually remote control a different machine, with this package. So that's like a major vulnerability. And that is the reason like everybody were like, hey, just upgrade, or don't upgrade if you're using like really old, or, like go ahead and upgrade with the fix right now, or just keep a watch on what's happening, and then we even like, because we are in a consulting agency, and then a lot of projects run on Java, and there was like a huge outcry that very 2 days, saying, hey, are we using Log4j packages, at clients and or at our internal work, and just make sure that, what version you're using, and if any of the packages that you're using have been exposed and things like that. There was a big, huge outcry all over the world and all over the internet this couple of weeks, I would say, in December. And this was another a ransomware attack. I was kind of reading through the website, and I kind of found out like there's a pretty good website where actually lists of ransomware all around the world. And when reading this, a lot of times what I've seen is like, you've got like FBI involved, you've got like worldwide cybersecurity firms like involved in all of this, but many a times they actually pay the cyber criminals, and it could be like millions, and many of these cases here, in ransomwares, like they actually have like either the credit card information or any of the PII information, and they just hold on to it, but many a times they actually don't use it. Is what they're told in much of the Google sites, but then definitely they have been paid. I'm moving on to next topic. Anybody have any questions?
I just wanted to point something out, Karlin, that I put in the chat a link to our product that will uncover Log4j vulnerabilities, and it's a 60-day for free. You use it. We're just trying to be good citizens, and of course bring people to our site and have them use our product. But you could uncover the Log4j vulnerabilities in your code, whether it be your open source stuff, libraries, or your own applications, and fix them.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Terry.
Welcome.
Yeah, we're moving on to the next topic here. I just wanted to like talk about what are the different types of cyber attacks. Up until now, we just spoken about the history of cybersecurity and how much is that evolved, and then now we are just going to focus morely about these kind of attacks. The first was malware. Malware basically it's actually a set of all of these kinds of attacks here. It could be a worm, it could be a Trojan horse, it could be an adware, it could be a spyware, and it could be a computer virus. I'm actually like super simplifying the explanation here. So basically it comes in a form of a executable file, now you actually have different words called botnets as well, and it look for your vulnerabilities in your operating system, in your network devices, and how you prevent this is like do not click links, or do not click attachments that you're not aware of. Make sure you have firewall, and make sure you have your operating system upgraded most of the times. And next kind of threat is phishing. So basically, phishing is, as the name implies, you're phishing for your personal data. It could be your credit card information, your SSN. And one best example is like, some attacker is sending an email, which very much looks like your bank login page. And then, you feel like, it's like split second, you just open it and then just redirect to your bank login page, and you just enter your username and password, and that's it. You've been phished. Yeah, so the steps here would be like, basically the attacker would think about, hey, which business should I target? And then, like deliver a message there, like in terms of like a email. And then the third step here is like, just get the data. And then as soon as they get the data, use it. It could be a credit card information and whatever it is. And how you could avoid this is basically understand how email works, understand how you can look for different kinds of domain. So basically, if it is like a citibank.com, maybe it is trustable, but sometimes if you actually go a little bit detail into like see and where that email is coming from, it could come from a different domain altogether, and make sure you don't like respond, or trust that page. The third kind of attack is a password attack. So basically you have like these three different kinds of attacks: your brute force, dictionary attack, or keylogger attack. Password attack is, in plain sense, is like, hey, if I want to log into your computer, I will try different sets of passwords. So I can just go ahead and type in your birthday, your name, your son, your kids' names, and your dog's names, and all of that. Or I could have a list of like, possible passwords that could be used. And then, surprisingly, I know a lot of people who use fruits, seasons, like months, or password.com, like password 123, and you just have the word password. So yeah, you will be surprised. So that is kind of type of password attacks to gain access to your software. The next kind is like distributed denial of service. It's in short, it's called DDoS. DDoS happens very famously. Like, for example, if you take Amazon.com, for example, say, and then, if you want to like create a DDoS attack, what it means is like you're creating a bot, and then you're creating some fake traffic to Amazon.com. And at that point in time, what happens is, like the fake traffic is using up all the servers, that Amazon.com is hosting, and the real people are not getting it. And then, and the attack is so much that the entire servers kind of break down. And there are a lot of DDoS attacks that are happening around the world. I've actually read very recently in the news, saying that Azure was also, DDoS attacked. And I think they have mitigated that as well. So this happens quite a lot, and a lot of services that help you stop this too. Man in the middle, like basically, this kind of attack happens mostly with the banks, like example that I was giving earlier. It'll mimic exactly like how your bank looks like. I mean, you'll be surprised. It could also have the internal things of how a bank looks like after you log in too. And then, you'll kind of like just freely give all the information there. And the man in the middle would just grab all the information and use for his own purpose. So this drive-by download attack occurs when vulnerable computers get infected just by visiting a website. I was kind of talking earlier, you don't really have to like click on a download and just open a website, and then you would be exposed to that threat. The next kind is like very interesting. I have not heard this before. It's malvertising. It's basically an advertisement, but it's not a true ad. The intention of that ad is to have your computer infected by a worm. Moving on. And ransomware attack. Basically, a ransomware attack is like they get access already to your data. It could be like very valuable data, like a PII data, credit card, any data that is kind of important. And then they would say that, hey, you pay me $5 million, only then you'll get access to your system and to your data. And as I've shown you earlier, this has become very famous. And then since there's a cost minded to it, there's a lot of incidents that are happening around the world, and a lot of documentation around these incidents as well. I want to show you this website. So what I have been explaining here is like very high level, or rather I would say very basics of cybersecurity types of threats and everything. But then, once you kind of go deeper into project implementations, you understand the different layers of, hey, you have to have cybersecurity implemented at network layer or data layer, at your cloud layer, at your like identity management layer and all of that. I came across this website. Basically, it's a knowledge base for a lot of techniques and real world observations here. So if you go into here, let us show. So I have different sections here, like infrastructure and all of that. And this is kind of like giving you pretty good information about, like, for example, if I go here, we have a scheduled task job. And then it would give you like what are the examples of threats here and how you could mitigate them, and how you could detect them. And this website is humongous. Like literally you have a lot of information on this. And if you're kind of interested to know on, hey, very specifically, what are the different kinds of threats I could do at your daily job, there's a lot happening at every level. So it's not stopping only at quality engineering per se. There's a lot of information that I don't understand as well. But coming from a testing background, all that I am interested in here is like, hey, if there is an issue identified, what are ways to fix it, and how are they kind of mitigating it? So this is a pretty interesting website to kind of like understand how you could learn all of that, basically. Moving on. I'm moving on to the next topic. Any questions, or if anybody wants to like share your experiences? Okay, I'll move on. The third topic I want to touch base here is security testing strategy. So I have actually personally created a lot of testing strategies, like for large projects and small projects, and it could be like mobile and front end, back end. I also worked on UAT, performance, and a lot of different kinds of testing strategies. And what I've come across here is like security testing strategy, when you want to design it, it's completely different, because your knowledge for testing is just not enough. There is a lot of information around security that is required for you to understand, and that is required for you to like implement way a lot at the beginning of the project itself. So let's get started. I have actually created this with my experience on what is important to strategize, if you want to like security test an application. So some of the key elements here that we have to understand before we get into this is like, asset. So basically, what is an asset? Things that needs to be protected, such as software application or your computer infrastructure. Threats and vulnerabilities. A threat basically, or a vulnerability is an activity that can cause damage to that asset. And what is the risk? So security testing aims to evaluate the risk that specific threat or vulnerabilities will cause a negative impact to the business. So basically, that's the risk. So remediation is, you're providing an actionable guidance for remediating on that particular issue. So moving on, a security testing strategy. I'm sorry, I forgot to put in the title here. But then, basically you have 3 sections here. First is a type of security testing. So like how we have, when you think about end-to-end testing, you think about types of testing. You can have API, you can have UI, you can have like integration. You have integration testing. You can have UAT and performance. And continuous testing as well, that comes as part of like normal phases of testing. So these are a couple of phases of testing that we could think about in security testing. The first one is vulnerability scanning, security scanning in terms of configuration, penetration testing, security audit, risk assessment, security posture assessments. The second set here is like security testing tools itself. Of SAS, DAS, like static application security and dynamic application security. And then you have interactive application security testing and hybrid tools and software composition analysis. And the third topic here is like you have security testing best practices. It's like shift left and test internal interfaces. Basically, these are some of the practices that you would want to implement, if you want to have security testing shift left. So we'll get started. Vulnerability scanning. When I was kind of like reading through this, a lot of security testing is done by automated tools. Like I actually call out some of the testing that can be done manually here. So vulnerability scanning is mostly done by an automated tool here, where the tool would identify the vulnerabilities and evaluate the risk, and also like provide a remediation for that risk too. And then you have like penetration testing. Penetration testing, or in short, it's called pen testing, is something, a world in itself, I would say, which is completely different way of how we usually think as quality engineers. It's basically like simulating a real life cyber attack, and it's kind of like emulating an entire, like you have a application, a software, environment, and all of that. And then once you're done with the pen testing, you evaluate the security measures, like how it actually happens in the real attack, and then you kind of like provide your recommendations. Web application security testing. This is a huge topic as well. There is this open source project, which is called OWASP, in short, Open Web Application Security Project. I want to quickly show what this is. So I think it's very famously called OWASP Top 10, and you will see a lot of courses like in Udemy and all of that for OWASP Top 10. What this is basically is like, they have actually suggested top 10 threats, and then you have a lot of test cases and documentation how to mitigate them. I think there is a Git, I didn't provide the link, but there is a GitHub link for all of the documentation for Top 10 as well. Moving on, we have API security testing. I think some of the API security testing is done manually and by us. Basically you'll have authentication, you'll have like authorization, and then you'll have I'm losing the word. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just lost what I was talking about. And these are basically included, and it could be automated as well in terms of this. But then one famously issues that I've seen here in API testing is like, if you're actually creating that as a HTTPS or a HTTP request, especially when you're kind of deploying in the cloud, that is kind of very important. How do you secure your APIs? And the next kind of testing here is like configuration scanning. Like now you have lots of different, like in terms of like project that you're implementing, you could use multiple services, and especially if you kind of think about cloud or like AWS and serverless, you have like lots of services that you actually have, and you have lots of configuration for each services as well. As a good practice, it's kind of like good to understand the configurations of all of them, and like understand what is the security compliance and levels that you have to like set for all of them. The next one that I mentioned here is like security audit. The security audits are, you can have it automated and also manual. That's what I kind of like read. Basically, you're just kind of reviewing, auditing the application according to the defined standard. The next is risk assessment. Basically here you are like identifying, analyzing, classifying the risk, and just making sure like you assessed all of them and have them ranked, and also like have recommendations or mitigations provided there. Security posture assessment. This also comes under automated scanning, and especially in Azure, you have like Azure posture score, a secure score where it actually scans like every service and application and all the data that is getting into it, and give you a assessment of what's happening. And that score would say that, hey, if it is too low, try to go ahead and fix it. And also provides some recommendations, if there is something that you could go ahead and fix. Let's move on. The next set is like security testing tools is SAST. And one of the tools that I have worked personally is SonarQube. SAST is static application security testing. That's what it stands for. So basically what it's doing is it actually scans your source code. It checks for if there are any race conditions, if there are any methods that are not being used, if there are any input validations, and things like that. It gives you a huge report, and it could be rated as well. It could be a critical, medium, low kind of an error, and that if something that is critical. One famous thing that I've seen in SAST reports is like you have these library files which are not recommended, which has some vulnerabilities, and these kind of tools would catch that. And that point in time, we have to go back and remove the library and not use it at all, and replace it with something else in the code. Moving on, we have dynamic application security testing. It's basically very similar to SAST, but kind of runs in runtime. And it actually checks a little bit wider than SAST, including scripting, sessions, data injections, authentication, like interfaces, responses, and requests. And the third section here is security testing best practices. So just rewind on what I've spoken up until now is most of the security testing strategies that I've seen, except for the one that we can think about as APIs from a testing perspective, is mostly like automated, or there is a tool that is available that is actually catching a vulnerability, and then you would have to like go analyze, see what the vulnerability is, and go back and like fix it. And some of the best practices are shift left. Shift left comes in everything. When we talk about DevOps, I would say that, hey, shift left. When we talk about test process, we would say, hey, shift left. I see that, Terry, shift left. Like especially, when we actually also like go to a client and close a deal, we say, hey, shift left, include QE at the beginning of the process. I want to be there at sales, and we want to be there at defining the tools and selections and all of that. And sure, shift left comes here at security and DevSecOps as well. And I think everybody understands what shift left is. I don't really want to like give more examples on this, but basically we have to like say that, hey, everything has to be defined, then designed, and then implemented. And the next here is like, just test internal interfaces and just not APIs and UI. This mostly comes under, when you're actually using microservices or kind of serverless kind of components, where as a tester, we just think about APIs and UIs. We really don't think about, hey, who that API is serving, what are the different network layers that are happening, how are those deployed, if it is containers, and and things like that. What the best practice here is like, think a little bit more about the internal interfaces, because attackers now are pretty intelligent. They exploit the weaknesses of those internal systems, not basically just what you see on APIs and UI. And this very famous thing that I've been reading is like in Azure is zero trust security model, trust nothing. And in that zero trust security model, it says like, when you have identity management, like provide least privileges, and then don't give access as admin, and this is just-in-time access where they say that you want to change something, we give you access only for 1 hour, just get it done with and get out of there. So that's very hot topic in Azure, I would say. The next one is automate and test often. This is true with everything and anything. Coming from a QE background, I always talk about automation and test often. And sadly speaking, that I don't really have much to say about security test automation in general, except for, like authentication and authorization and things like that. But then, yeah, this definitely holds true, like automate and test often. And this is pretty interesting. I kind of picked this up from one of the websites here, but what they have recommended here is like third-party components in open source security, like use them. So that's pretty interesting. And, when I kind of like digged into our own company, we have been using some security testing tools as well. I think I've listed a few here. Yeah. One thing that we are using currently is like, like Git Guardian. It's not an open source, but what it does is it scans your GitHub code, and it will detect for keys and passwords and certificates and any encryption keys for any sensitive data. And what we are doing currently here is like, at Slalom, anybody who's having a GitHub account, if they're actually like putting up code there, which is at any way linked to Slalom, either they could be an ex-employee or current employee, this will show up in our report. It's pretty interesting because we'd get an email like one every day, people who are actually checking in keys into the repo. So that's pretty surprising. Even even from a QA practice, now we are starting to advocate, saying that, hey, you're using your username, but don't save the password in the code. Save it in whichever cloud you're using. Use, like Azure Secret, like AWS Secret Management, or we have this one in Azure, or use this environment file or GitHub variables, or any build server variables, but don't save the password. Don't save the API keys. So we are trying to advocate, but it's a learning. This is very much a very new learning for me as well, and why it is important not to share the keys in a public repository. And two of the things that I have used personally is SonarQube and Veracode. Spelling mistake on SonarQube. But as I was saying, SonarQube, it's an open source, platform, and we have actually recommended this to a lot of clients, and it does a pretty good analysis, static analysis of code, and also provides code coverage as well, and some security recommendations. Veracode, I have just used it once. You have to bundle the code into a zip file, push it up onto the Veracode. It could do both static analysis and a dynamic analysis as well. Yeah, I think that is all I had. Oh yeah, this is another copy paste. I found this interesting because I was kind of reading about security strategies, and I've come upon this a pyramid. We usually have the pyramid of, hey, UI here, a little bit of API, a little bit of integration, and that's how the pyramid looks like. But this looks very different. Top of the pyramid, we have application security testing orchestration. If anybody else is can speak to this, I'm more than happy to. But my understanding here is it's mostly the app dynamics way of looking at things. It's giving you a dashboarding view of what's happening there. One level below is the correlation tools and test coverage analyzers. One level below is the mobile application security testing, the interactive application security testing, and application security testing as a service. That's very new again, application security testing as a service. And when I've been reading through, I think most of the cloud services, we have got in Azure and AWS, they come in this bucket. And the bottom line here is the static application security, the dynamic application security. That's what I'm talking about, Veracode or SonarQube. They come in this kind. And the SCA is new. Software composition analysis, I've not seen this before. Database security scanning, of course, that's a very different concept in itself. So this is the pyramid for security testing. And that is all I had. Anybody wants to share some thoughts? Talk about what you have heard. Is this useful? Was this interesting? And I tried to have
very interesting and very useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Yeah, I mean, we wanted to have a conversation kind of a presentation, but I think I kind of stole the entire 1 hour. But please, if anybody else wants to share your thoughts, or if you want to learn more about any of these things, please feel free to either talk now or ping in the chat. I haven't seen the chat messages actually.
I was wondering if anyone has any experience with any of the tools or technologies, and if they want to talk about it, kind of share with the rest of the group. Since we have cybersecurity people here.
I can speak to SonarQube a little bit. I have implemented SonarQube. I love the tool. I think it's a great tool. The maintenance on it, I thought, was a little bit, it's just hard to stay up on security in general. So you have to constantly be updating your definitions and that sort of thing. And that was the most challenging part of it for me, at least.
Hey, Andrew, welcome. And I had a slide to talk about ransomware and Log4j for you.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I had another meeting pop up at the same
Not a
time that
problem
the
at
meeting
all.
happened. So I got here at the later half there, but yeah, thank you, Karlin, for giving the speech and the presentation. It was very good.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Andrew, can I ask you a question about SonarCube?
Yeah.
Did you have an on-prem solution or was it a
Yes.
SaaS?
It was an on-prem solution.
So that's how companies like Veracode, my company, others, that when you have a cloud-based solution, you don't have to constantly update, to stay up with the OWASP top 10, Log4j, or whatever's,
Yeah.
troubling us.
Yeah.
It's about, everybody has a issue with their source code leaving the premises too. That's another,
Yeah, and that's the client. The client really is the one that makes the rules there. You know
Oh, yeah.
what I mean?
No, I get it. But, because I work for companies that did both, and they both have advantages, they both have disadvantages, but staying current, like just exactly what you said, Andrew, is the hobgoblin of on-prem solutions, that you don't have that challenge with the cloud-based solutions.
Yeah, very well put.
Thank
I have
you.
a quick question for you.
Sure.
So I'm trying to figure out the differences between a security scan, a configuration scan, and a security audit. They all kind of seem like the same thing to me.
Yeah.
So audit, typically whenever you have an audit, there's a person involved with that. That's the auditor doing the audit, right? And they will do certain actions like scanning. So depending on what they're auditing, they could be auditing your business processes, or they could be auditing your code. So there's different parts that they could audit.
So it's not necessarily just related to like code. It could be anything within like let's say a business facility. You would audit the security of, I don't know, their network, not just the code that's running on their network.
Typically, you start with what's called the SOC 2 audit, and the SOC 2 audit does the audit. It's SOC 2, and that SOC 2 audit helps you hire an outside company, right? And so you'll have a SOC 2 auditor that comes into your company, and they audit the processes, the procedures, everything that actually makes up the company, the functional processes between people and departments, that sort of stuff.
So someone like a security auditor, that person would perform something like a configuration scan, a security scan, and a risk assessment. Would you say that's correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then my understanding, I'm very novice here in configuration scanning, and what SonarCube or Veracode does is like the difference. My understanding here is you have to like upload the code or run those tools against your source code, but not configurations. And configuration scanning, what I've read is mostly for cloud-based solutions where you have like lots of configurations and you scan them. Like Andrew and anybody, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what my understanding is.
Yeah, there's many different ways that you can implement scanning, right? Scanning can be implemented by the developer. So at least I use IntelliJ as my IDE, and there is SonarLint, and SonarLint allows you to run SonarCube scans directly in your IDE as the developer. So there's different ways that you can actually interact with SonarCube as well.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. So I'm moving on to the closing slide. Yeah, thank you, everybody. The intention for today's topic was like basics of cybersecurity and why is it important to test. And hopefully I tried to drive the point home. If anybody's interested in anything else, please let us know. Join our Slack channel. I will post that link in the chat here. And please feel free to hit us up in any of our LinkedIn messages as well. So looking ahead, We've got Andrew here, and Andrew, you can speak for it if you can make it. But the next month, we are planning to have a Cypress session, and Cypress is kind of like becoming pretty popular as end-to-end automation tool, both for API and UI. And we're going to have a session next month. The date's not been decided, but we're going to post that message soon on both our meetup group and also on LinkedIn page. Well, that is all I had. Thank you all, everybody, for joining.
Thank you. Great job.
Thanks, Karlin. Thanks, everyone.
You.
Joey.
Bye.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
I think they all signed off before you sent that chat.
Yeah, it was like a sharing my screen. Oh my God, I was so nervous.
You're still sharing your screen.
I was so nervous. Oh my God. I was like, I probably used the word basically for like 100 times today. I was never nervous like this before. I think because I was not confident about the subject.
Karlin, you want to stop the recording and then?
I like how you waited till after she said that before offering to stop recording.
Oh my God.
Oh, we can cut that off.